Thank you all for inviting me down here. It's my second time, actually. I was at the, when was that? Pilgrim Pines at the Sahavas many years ago. Anyway, it's really difficult in a way to talk about Baba because it either turns into a little biography of yourself or something else. So I can only tell about myself and hope that you'll understand that it's not scripture. It's not that you have to do what I did, hopefully, or thought what I thought. I decided for some very strange reason to become a dancer in 1950, and I wound up at the Metropolitan Opera House, which had its own ballet school, which was directed by Margaret Krask and the same Anthony Tudor, who are now working at staging his ballets. And the two of them had that school. Well, I didn't really know. So I don't know why I wound up there, but I did. Someone told me there was a woman there that taught beginners very well, not Miss Krask. So eventually, after about a year, I advanced enough to have an audition with Miss Krask to get into her class. And you know, no one knew anything about her, and the rumors went around that she had some mysterious relationship with some mysterious man in India. And we didn't, you know, we weren't into knowing about spirituality and gurus and all of that stuff. It was all something weird because, for instance, Miss Krask had been working with the ballet company, American Ballet Theatre, when she first came from India. And in certain ballets, the women wear a costume called a tutu, which is a short skirt made out of a tarlatan, kind of gauze. And people thought in those days that yogis used swallowed yards of gauze to cleanse themselves. And one day, one of these tutus was missing. And this rumor went around that Miss Krask had eaten it. But you see, we were in such ignorance about all of that. And I remember then one day we were told that Miss Krask had to go away to attend to this man that she'd lived with in India who'd had an accident. And so we were deprived of her classes and we had somebody else. But who this man was and what had happened, and that was the famous, you know, accident. And so we went along, and Myrtle and some of the dancers, like Lauren Hightower, for example, he had met Baba already in 1952. But it was a kind of hush-hush. People didn't talk about it. Finally, what happened was, in 1954, I got my first job, and it was in Williamsburg, Virginia, in a historical pageant. It's kind of tacky, I think, at this point, but it was about the American Revolution. And there was a young man came to be in that show, and he became very friendly with myself and with a lady named Maria Dare. Maria Dare had heard about Baba before, and so she told Peter, and I used to think, what are they up to? They'd sit out on the lawn in the moonlight and read poetry, and I thought this is really horrible. What on earth is going on here? So, no, and he, of course, hadn't met Miss Krask yet, so when the show came to an end in the fall, he came to New York to study with her. Then we became friendly rivals because we were always fighting and being friendly. One night after class, we used to go out to this terrible place called Hector's on 42nd Street and have coffee. And we got into one of our usual arguments. And Peter looked at me and he said, "You're so horrible." "You're so horrible that the only thing that could help you is Meher Baba." And I said, "Who is that? You know, who's that?" So Peter, having heard about Meher Baba about a month previously and knew all about everything, proceeded to explain reincarnation to me. And that was, you know, well, yeah, I thought this is right, this is absolutely right. I knew it was right away. So I said, "Well, how can you find out about Meher Baba?" And he said, "Well, you have to go and make an appointment and go to see Miss Krask in the evening where she lived in this hotel room." I said, "Well, all right, I'm going to do that." Now, prior to all this, when one thinks back into the past, where did this sort of interest, if you want to put it, in spirituality come from? Well, I remember when I was very young, there used to be a comic book. They would do classic novels in the form of a comic book. It was called Classic Comics. I don't know if any of you remember that. And one of the things they had was the Bible, believe it or not, in comic strip. And so, you know, there would be prophet so-and-so, and God would be in the cloud, and there was this little balloon with God speaking. And at one point it said, this is the last prophet that God spoke to. After that, God never spoke anymore. Excuse me. And I said, well, no, that's not true. I don't know where I got that from. I just don't think that's true. And I got all fired up about going to take lessons to be bar mitzvah. My family was Jewish. And I went to the temple and I had lessons on Sunday and learned how to read Hebrew. And the rabbi would teach us about the Bible and blah, 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 blah. And one day he said to all of us, he said, well, you know, we do not believe in the Messiah. We don't believe the Messiah will come, that there'll just be one day in the future, what we'll call the Messianic age, when everyone will get along with each other and love each other. And I looked at him and I said, I'm sorry. I said, well, that's not true, because Jesus came. I didn't say that. Luckily, I didn't say that, but I thought it. And I don't know where that came from. You see, that just was there. I thought, well, you know, this is just, they're saying things that aren't true. So I immediately left. I mean, I never got bar mitzvah. So that was the end of my spirit. Yeah, maybe I'm going to go to hell. I don't know. There'll be a lot of people there with me, though. So anyway, long story short, I wound up at the Metropolitan Opera Ballet School, starting to study dance, and then I went to Miss Krask to talk about Baba. Well, first I went to her little dressing room after class. I said, Miss Krask, is it possible for me to know about Mayor Baba? And she said, yes. And she said, I said, well, you know, I don't know if I'm good enough for that. And she said, my dear, Baba is even for criminals. So that encouraged me. So one of the dancers who also followed Baba in his way told me that, well, when you go there, you knock on the door and the door will open and gongs go off and there's all this incense and she's draped in blue veils and, you know, mystical lights, you know, like seance thing. And I thought, oh, you know, I don't know, what am I? So I got all my courage and I went there and I knocked on the door and she opened the door. She was perfectly just like she was when she taught class, and there was no incense and no gongs and anything. And so what happened was she would tell us stories about Baba. She didn't lead us into the intellectual, you know, the discourses or anything. It was all about him and bringing him to life for us. Yes, she gave us the discourses to read, of course, but it was all stories about her times with Baba. And there were a bunch of us, and we all lived in the same building on 49th Street, where I'm still stuck. They all got out, but I'm there. So there was Peter, and there was Marie, and there was myself, and there was several other people, Susan Viola Farber, all living in this place. And Lauren Hightower Tex lived in a building just behind us on the other street. So we were all together, and every time someone would go to see Miss Krask, everyone would gather afterwards in Marie's apartment and tell what Miss Krask had told them. And she had a little shoebox with a few pictures in it. There were no pictures. I mean, it was very, very different. And she might give you one crumpled up picture of Baba, and we would go back and talk about it. So we had this whole thing going. Anyway, I had a very hard time. You know, one talks about obedience and surrender. Well, I didn't surrender and I didn't get obedient either. I really didn't. Dancing is a very tough profession, and it's very, very hard to accomplish what you need to accomplish. And it means surrendering a lot of things, your ego for one thing, which you can just turn it off. And Miss Krask was not kindly. She was she was, of course. So I used to get into these temperamental rows, and I'd stand in the middle of the floor and stomp my feet because I couldn't do something, and the class would be going on, they'd pile and bang into me, and it was always a disruption. Miss Krask would throw me out and say, don't go over there and sit in the corner or something. You know, she was not nice about it. So finally, one day we were starting class, and when you start your class in ballet, you do what they call bar exercises, where you have literally a bar fastened to one, you hold on to one hand and you exercise one leg, about 16 of these in 6 minutes. Then you turn around and do the same thing on the other leg, and then the next exercise, so it repeats on both sides. So there I was, and she said, do ba-da-da-da-da-da-da, and she said, and I started, and I looked around, and everybody was doing something completely different from what I was doing. And I thought, well, they don't even know what she said. They're not understanding at all. I got really kind of annoyed. So when I turned around, the other side, Tex was in front of me now, and he was someone I really looked up to. He was already in the ballet company, and he was a professional. I thought he was the god of the dance. And there he was in front of me, and Miss Kress said, and he was doing the same thing as all the rest of the class, which was not what I had interpreted her. And I stopped. I just was furious. I just got like, it sounds stupid now. She stopped the class and she said, "What's the matter? Why have you stopped?" And I said, "Well, Miss Kress, you know, they're all doing the wrong exercise." And she said, "Never mind, just get on with it." And she said, and the pianist started to play, and off they went again, and they were still doing the wrong exercise, and I couldn't move, I was frozen. And she said finally to me, either do the exercise or leave. Wait a minute. So I said, well, that's it. I'm not going to do that exercise. I'm going to leave, and I'm never going to come back to the school again, and I'm never going to have anything to do with Meher Baba again, and that's the end of it. And so I left the class, and I got dressed, and I went downstairs. There was a little Greasy Spoon restaurant, and I had some coffee until waited till the class was over and everybody had cleared out to go back and get my things and pack them up and leave. And I came back up to the school. It was empty, the studio, and the secretary of the school was this little Irish lady. She was about 4.5 feet tall, and she'd been there for 40-something years, and she knew Caruso and Pavlova and everybody. And she was fiercely defending of Miss Kress. She just, you could not say boo to her. And she came up to me all 4.5 feet, and she said, "You cannot come back to class until you apologize to Miss Kress." And I said, "Well, I'm never coming back to this. I'll never apologize to her. That's it, you know." I mean, I was berserk. So I left, and I went home, and I sat in my apartment. I thought, well, which school should I go to? And I didn't like that one, I didn't like that. I just could not come to any resolution. Days went by, and I was just not doing anything. And finally I said, you know, I better go and see her. So I gathered myself together, as I had many times in the past and in the future because of her, and marched myself over to her hotel, and I got the house phone, and I called her up, and I said, "Miss Kress," and she said, "Yes." It was nothing nice. "It's Donald." "Yes." "I think I better come up and see you." And she said, "Yes, I think you better have," and you could hear the phone slam down. She wasn't going to make it easy, so I went up there with my knees knocking and knocked on the door, and the door opened, and she had very long gray hair. It was always up in a bun. No one ever, but she didn't fix it. It was hanging down. She was in a bathrobe. She didn't look nice at all. She didn't put on any makeup to make her look sweet or anything. She just looked fierce, and I walked in, and she looked at me and she said, "Why did you do what you did?" And I said, "Well, blah, blah, blah." She said, "Never mind." She said, "If you had loved me, you wouldn't have done that." And I said, "Well, da 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 da." And then she said, "Yes, and what's more, you don't love Baba." So I fell on the floor and cried and screamed, and then it was all right after that. We got back together. And that was not the last time. This frustration that I would get into, and not being able to accomplish what I had to accomplish, and blaming everybody else for it. You know, they're not doing the right thing, and they're going in front of me, and you know, whatever. And it went on for a long time. In 1956, I got an invitation to go to Canada to join the National Ballet of Canada. And I said to myself, well, I don't know whether to do this or not. And I thought and thought, and I thought, well, I think I'll ask Miss Kress what she thinks. And you know, she wouldn't say anything. Now that's the thing. She never ever gave any advice in that way. You know what I'm saying? She'd say, "Love Baba," but she'd never say, "Do this or don't do that." Never, ever. And she wouldn't tell me whether I should go to Canada or not. So finally I made up my mind. I said, okay, I'm going to go. And I was walking down the street and bumped right into her, literally, not literally. And she said, "Oh, I think it would be a good idea if you go to Canada." Because I had already decided. So I went there, and no sooner had I gotten there than Baba notified us, everybody, that he was coming to the West. And I had this kind of scholarship to be. I had to be there. I couldn't go away. And there was Baba coming to New York in 1956. It was July, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm bad on dates. And I went to the director of the company. I said, "Well, I need to go back to New York for the weekend." and she didn't like it at all. Now this is a woman who had known Miss Krask in England. So it's all very kind of knit together. She knew Tudor, she knew Miss Krask, and there was all this connection. And I said, well, and she said, well, you can go for the weekend. So I went down to New York, and we all went out to the airport. It was called Idlewild then, to see Barbara's plane arrive. And while we were waiting there, I don't know if the plane was late or we were there very early or not, we were all nervous, and we decided to have some breakfast, and we had breakfast at a little countertop thing, and Miss Krask had scrambled eggs, and she pressed on the plate and it flipped through the air and landed in her lap. And she was all nervous, you know, about seeing Barbara, I guess. And at one point we were standing there, quite funny, and if anybody's going to be offended by this, you can leave the room. We were standing with Miss Krask, and Ivy Deuce, Marcia Deuce, came over to us, and she said to Miss Krask, what a lovely group you have. And Miss Krask drew herself up to 10 feet tall, and she said, they're not my group. And Ivy said, well, no, I just wanted to say how nice they look. She said, it's not that I don't love them, I just don't claim them. And people still think that when I say Miss Margaret Krask dancers, that it was a group or a company. It wasn't. We were just students of hers. And she did not claim us. Maybe because she probably was ashamed of us. I don't know. Anyway, finally the moment came and Baba arrived, and we were standing in this long hall, and Baba was seen through a window, plate glass window in the immigration, and he had his pink coat on, was beaming and radiant, and just like you can imagine, or maybe you can't. And he came out, and well, my thought was, he's got to come by me and see that I'm the most spiritual, wonderful thing in the world, and really acknowledge my greatness, you know? So he came down this long line of people. We were all in a great long line in this hall, and he would, this one and that one, and he got to Peter, my rival, and he took Peter by the chin and looked at him like, you know, this is the person I've been looking for all my life. And then he came to Miss Krask, and there was this incredible exchange of love. And he walked, and he came to me, he walked right past me and didn't even look at me. So, okay, so then he got into the car, which was a convertible. You may have seen this in the films where they wanted to take pictures, the top kept going up and down. And he was taken into New York, and we all went into New York, not with him, and had some breakfast, and then went to the Delmonico to see him. We had no idea of what we were to do or what was to happen or anything. We were all gathered in this antechamber, and he was in a room, and one by one Baba would have Monley come out and call either individuals or groups to come in and see him. And finally he came to us, and we were called in, and Miss Krask was standing there, and we were in a little clump, and each one of us was introduced to Baba by name. And Baba, we've seen it. He was lying on the chaise lounge covered in a white material, and he had a bowl of fruit on his right-hand side, and Eritrea, one of the Monley, was there, and I went up, Miss Krask introduced me, I went up and I sat down next to him. Wait. I don't usually get this way, I guess it's his birthday. This was like, can't describe it really, but it was like sinking into something so soft and welcoming and safe and wonderful and warm. You know, I put my cheek next to his, and I thought, well, I'm just going to stay here forever. This is really, really wonderful. I mean, lights didn't go off or anything, but it was just this wonderful, wonderful thing of what he felt so soft and you know, well, anyway, finally one of them got me by the shoulder, wrenched me up and said, go. And Baba gave me some fruit, I guess a grape or something as prasad, and I left. And you see, this started something because I thought if you really loved Baba and he loved you, you would have this huge reaction, you know, emotional reaction at sea, and I didn't. I mean, except for that, what I'm telling you, I went out and some people went in to see and came out and cracked up and fell on the floor and cracked, you know, and no, I didn't have that. And then we were all in a kind of daze after we were all seen him, and we didn't know what to do, so we just sat around. And then lo and behold, somebody came out and called us in again. Oh, that's right, thank you. And we realized the thing to do was just to hang around, because you never knew when he would call you back again. And we did go back and see him in that room. Well, the next day was, there was a bus hired by one of the groups. Now you see, there was a kind of rivalry between groups. We tried to get Baba all for themselves, and I'm not going to say who. But we were all powerless. We were all, you know, very young, and we didn't have anything. So we decided we would go down in the morning to see Baba get on that bus. It was a tour bus that we would take him around Manhattan and show him the sights. And so we were very happy to be there, and Baba came out, and it was on Park Avenue in front of the Delmonico Hotel, and Baba was standing on the sidewalk with his hands in his pockets, and I was sitting absolutely right next to him, and people kept walking by, you know, ordinary people, and I was thinking, you know, how unbelievable. People will go all the way over to Jerusalem to walk where they think Jesus walked, and here he is standing right here and they don't see him. But they didn't. Oh, sorry, hang on a minute. You want to bring me up again? Sorry about that. So, all these people got on this bus, and then Baba got on. After everybody was on, Baba got on into one of the very front seats on the right-hand side of the bus, and he was sitting at the window. And we were out on the sidewalk like goons, beaming away, and Baba looks out the window and he says, you know, come on the bus. We went, no, you know, because it hadn't been hired for us, so we were not invited. Baba said, come on the bus, and we kept saying no. So Baba sent out, and it was Nariman, come out. Baba wants to know why you're not getting on the bus. And we said, well, because, you know, we weren't meant to be on this bus. It was hired by this group, and we're very happy to be here and to have seen Baba, but that's okay, you know, don't worry about it. And so he went back on the bus, and we saw him whispering, and Baba turned around and he went, and we said no again. So Baba sent that man out, that Mandali out, and he said, Baba says, if you don't get on the bus this minute, this instant, he's not going to go. Well, we ran onto that bus so fast, you can't believe. And the people that was sitting, the back seat was a one long banquet, and they all had to get up. And we sat in that back seat, and people tripled up and all that. And there we were on that bus, and the bus was going to start, and Baba turned around to us and went like this. And off we went on this trip all around, and Baba was showing Wall Street, and I don't even remember why, but eventually we got by the UN, and to get off the First Avenue to go west, you have to go on 49th Street, turn a left on 49th, and that was the street we lived on, that's where our house was. And all of a sudden we were driving past our house with Baba in the bus. So it was kind of odd. Anyway, then there was that dinner at the Delmonico's that you've heard about. And again, it was another one of those things where we were seated at a table far away from the main table. And Baba went around the room and patted people and I kept saying, why doesn't he come over to me, you know? And he didn't. I felt like he doesn't really know who I am. You know. So anyway, that was 1956. Then spent some years in Canada traveling and touring and working hard and getting into trouble a lot. You know, there was one time when Baba sent these orders that we had to be celibate. That was a disaster. And so, you know, things were not easy. 1958 came, and again Baba was coming to America. So what happened was that in 56, about 4 or 5 of the dancers went with Baba around the country, which I couldn't do, so I had to go back to Canada. And while they were out in LA, I believe it was, or it must have been here, he said he wanted them to come and dance for him in his hotel room. And they had nothing prepared, they had no shoes, no anything, no music. And they went and they did it, and Miss Kress whistled and clapped, and they did silly things, and they felt terribly embarrassed. So they had decided that if Baba were ever to come again to the West, they would actually prepare a show in case he asked. They didn't say they asked if they could do it, not at all. They just were prepared to do it if he wanted it. And so they got to Myrtle Beach and they had this show, and Baba did ask for it. Well, I had written to this Marie and said, Marie, I'm not coming to see Baba because I have to be do my job and be in this company. I have to be loyal to this company, and I can't let them down. So she must have told me, and so the first and only time I got a call from Marie said I had to call Miss Kress immediately, and I did. And Miss Kress said, well, what is this I hear about you not coming to see Mayor Baba? And I said, well, Baba, no, never mind. She said, the only thing that matters is that you come to see Baba. And that was the only time she's ever, you know, placed an order. And I said, well, you know, it was like a week before he was coming. I said, well, how am I going to get there? What am I going to do? I don't know. She said, well, I have to go and ask for permission from this woman that she knew, Celia Franco was her name, if I could leave. And she said, well, you'll do that. And I said, well, what'll I do if she says no? And she said, you just go and think of Bob, and we'll see what happens. And so I went, I called her up and went to her room, and I said, you know, there's this, and well, what happened was that she didn't answer my question. She just told me that I was the worst person in the world, and that she'd had all this trouble with me, and she didn't know what to do with me. And I said, yes, but can I go to see Mahler Baba? And she'd say, no, you're the worst person in the world. And she went on and on about how horrible I was. And every time I asked her, could I go, she wouldn't give me an answer. She just told me how horrible I was, which I probably was. And so what she did was very interesting. She absolutely destroyed my loyalty to her. And it made it possible for me to march myself right down to the lobby where there was a travel agent, and I booked a ticket to Myrtle Beach. And the next day she came with her answer, and she said, you can go, but I don't approve of it. You see. And she said, I'm forced into letting you go, which totally wasn't true. And I really didn't miss much at all. We'd been on a long tour, and the company was going back to Toronto to do some rehearsals, and then down to Mexico City, which was a 4-day trip on the train. I missed like two performances or something. It was nothing. But I went. Well, you know, I didn't know where Myrtle Beach was, where anything was. And I got on this plane, and I finally landed in Wilmington. Then what? Where is Myrtle Beach, and how do you get there? And I'm standing on the sidewalk, and this man, very well-dressed man, is standing there, and he looks at me and he says, are you going to Myrtle Beach? And I said, well, yes. And he said, well, I have a car, would you like to come along with me? And I said, well, yeah. And this limousine pulls up, and in I get, and off we drive, and he never says anything more to me. And I'm not saying this is mystical, but I don't remember ever seeing him again. I mean, he probably must have been there, but I don't remember. I mean, there weren't that many people there so that's how I got this. So, okay, now I get to Myrtle Beach. I've not been able to stay on the center because I was so late in saying I was coming. Punishment number 1. Number 2, I find out the dancers are doing this performance and they left me out of it. And, oh my God, I was like, well, she said, you told us you weren't coming, so we didn't let you know. Well, I'm going to dance, I said. I'm going to find something to do. I'm going to be in your program. And I told Miss Krask, and she didn't say no, but she gave me a very icy look. And I thought, well, there was no place to buy any music in Myrtle Beach in those days. You know, there was you know, nothing in Myrtle Beach. And I didn't have a costume, I didn't have anything. And after a day or two, I realized there was no way I could get anything together. So I went to her and I said, Miss Grass, I've decided that I'm not going to dance. And she said, that's very good, because you would have ruined the performance. Meaning, not that I was a bad dancer, but that I wasn't prepared. To you know, the whole thing in show business is to be prepared, well prepared. And I wasn't, so I couldn't be part of it. So what happened was, we had the barn, and those of you who've been there, there's this wagon wheel chandelier in the middle, and that's where Baba sat, under that, and behind him, towards the center direction, was the audience, and in front of that was the stage, and the door at the end of the bar that went towards the beach was the entrance. And we blocked out all the windows with some kind of material so that it was dark enough. And you know, Elizabeth, you didn't dare touch anything anywhere in the center. I mean, she would get your head, you know. So we had to be really careful moving the furniture. And then the floor was all slippery, and it was full of sand. It was horrible. I washed the floor. We washed the floor with Coca-Cola, which is makes it sticky. I mean, we did all this stuff. I was doing all this work as like stage manager. When the time came for the performance, I was out on the back porch, which had a covering over the door also, and I would open the door for the dancers to come on and open the door for them to come off again. And I never saw the performance. That was my part. I was opening and closing the door. They all danced for Baba, and evidently it was quite wonderful, and Baba was very pleased. And at the end, we were all standing out in the back there, and someone comes out and says, Baba wants you all to come out, and he wants to thank you for having danced so wonderfully. So I opened the door for them to go, And then one turned and said, no, you have to come also. I said, no, I'm not I didn't. My pride really went right up to you. I said, I didn't do anything. I'm not going to go there and be thanked for something I didn't do. And maybe he doesn't even know I didn't do it. You know, this is like really bad. No, you have to come. And well, I did. I went out and Baba hugged me, kissed me, and thanked me all the same. While we were there, Miss Krask was told that Baba wanted to be carried in a chair because he had that automobile accident and he couldn't walk very well. And I think because we were dancers, we knew how to carry people carefully. So to begin with, we had this, there were two of them in the barn actually. There's a kind of carved Spanish chair. And we had that chair and there were 5 of us. Well, we really only needed 2 people to carry him. So we managed to squeeze a third one in the back, pretending to be holding it, you know. And the first time we left the barn, we went out forward. And as we went down the stairs, of course, the chair tipped this way and he almost fell out. So then we realized we had to go out backwards so that he'd lean. And then Harry Kenmore came and he had made this special chair, which had 2 poles on the side, which was going to be good to carry. And it wasn't because instead of having poles like this, the front poles went down like that. Then there was a chair and then the back went up. So it's very hard to keep it level. But anyway, that's what we did. And we had 5 of us, so there were 2 in the front, 2 in the back, and 1 left out. And each time we had another opportunity to carry him, we rotated the back to the front, and then one person would go off in the extra 5th one. We were very fair. We were really, really nice to each other. And we carried him in that chair from the car to the lagoon cabin, from the car into the barn and back again. And then one wonderful day, we were told that we were to carry Baba all around the center and stop in front of each cabin. And that happened to be my turn to be in the front. Now, you have to see that when you're in the front, Baba would put his hands on your shoulders and pat you. And the people in the back could only sort of look on, you know, hoping to get, no, the people in the front. And I was in the front that day, on the left-hand side. And it wasn't just a little trip from the car to the, it was all around the center. And I thought, oh, I'm in my glory. You know, I'm in the best place and Baba's there and I'm going to do all this. So we started off and we went, and this is very interesting because you can see this in the film. All of a sudden, I see Tex in front walking backwards. He was such a stinker, could have just been a little bit out of sight. No, he's right in my sight, walking, he was the one not carrying. Walking backwards, looking at us. And I'm starting to feel guilty. And I think, you know, maybe I should let Tex carry for a while. No, I'm not going to do that because this is my rightful place. I waited my turn, and this is my, you know, and I got more and more. I wasn't enjoying it. I was getting more. And all of a sudden, Nariman comes up and taps me on the shoulder and says, Baba wants you to let Tex carry him for a while. And that was interesting. And then I got it back again, and then eventually the other men got to carry him a little bit, and then eventually the ladies carried him a little bit. But we carried him a lot, and it was quite amazing. It was just really a marvelous, marvelous thing. So the last day, we were at the barn. Okay, we had to guard that chair. Okay, Ms. Kretz said, you guard that chair because someone's going to try to get it away from you. To do that, you know, seriously, you think it's funny, but you know, you gotta really, so anytime that Baba was going to come to the barn, we would go out there and put the chair in ready, and then go back to where we was at the lagoon cabin, and someone would make sure that they were there to guard that chair. So this one day, the chair was sitting at the barn, and we were all at the lagoon cabin, and Baba was standing by the door, and everybody was around him. Tex and those were in the middle, right close to him, and I was way on the outside. And all of a sudden, without any warning, Baba says, let's go to the barn. An old chair is standing there all by itself, and we see this man, young man, who wanted that job, and he took off like the road runner. And I took off like the road runner behind him. I saw Tex said, go. And I ran. I don't know how I got there. You weren't allowed to go off the path and go through the bushes or anything. Somehow, I don't know how, Tex said it was the funniest thing he's ever seen because there I was standing with my arm on the chair and this guy was coming around and they were all trotting behind him and there I was cool as a cucumber with the chair. So he didn't get it. Anyway, this one day we're standing waiting at the barn for Baba to come, and someone came to me and said, Baba is saying goodbye at the lagoon cabin to those people who had to leave early, which was me, for one. And what are you doing here? You're going to miss it. It's like, oh my God, I got to go. And the dancers had rented a station wagon. I said, can I take the car? And they said, yeah, take the car. And I started off down the path, and of course some people were coming up the road, and I tried to go off the road to make room for them, and I ran over a log and got stuck. dancers coming out. I said, take the car, and I ran, and I ran, and I ran all the way down to the lagoon cabin. There was Baba standing with maybe 2 people, and I drew up in a great big cloud of dust. And he looked at me going, you know, what's this? And I said, oh, Baba, I was told you were saying goodbye to everybody, and I thought I was going to miss you, and here I am. And he went, that was it, you know, a little peck. Never made a fuss about that. So that was it. That was 58. Then 62, the East-West Gathering. Again, I had trouble to go there because the people I was then working in the Metropolitan Opera and the Ballet Company, and they didn't want me to go. Well, the woman who was the head of the company, she didn't want me to go, and I had to find a way to outwit her. So I went to her, and she knew about Baba, and I said, Maddie, you know, we have this possibility to go to India, and she said, I don't approve. I said, yeah, I know I won't be able to go, I'm sure, but I think I really, if I don't really try my most, I'll regret it in the future, even though I know it's not going to work. I better go, and to this other man who was her boss. See, so I did that. I went to, and of course he said yes, and there was nothing she could do about it. So off we went to India, and that was the height of the Cuban Missile Crisis. What are we doing? Are we having an emergency? It was the height of the Cuban Missile Crisis, and we did not think we were going to get out of New York at all. Believe me, it was really bad that particular night that we left. And we were in the airport thinking, well, this plane's not taking off. And not all of us went at the same time. I was there, but Tex and Peter came at different times. And we did get off in the plane, and it was really kind of wonderful because there was nobody on the plane. We had the rows to ourselves, and we could sleep. We got to India, and we had rooms were rented for us at the Taj Mahal, the famous place, you know, that very place, to freshen up. And it was early in the morning, and of course, oh, India. So I had a camera. I said, I've got to go out, I've got to take pictures. So I ran outside, and so there were all these people, and they all had red, bleeding gums. And I said, oh my God, these poor people, they have pyorrhea, it's so sad. So I kept giving my money to them. And then there was this snake charmer, and he had this basket, and he said, you want to see snake dance? And I said, oh, all right. And so he picks off the lid of this thing, and this poor cobra was all asleep, you know, and he would pick it up and would, it just didn't want to perform. And finally it got up and did a little jingle or something. And he said, now you pay. And I said, pay with what? I just given my money away. Well, the question, they'd all been chewing betel nut. It wasn't pyorrhea at all. And I said, I've given all my money away. What am I going to do? And then this menacing crowd collected. I mean, it was like really weird. They were going to, and I ran like you can't believe into the hotel, and was saved. Then we went in cars to Pune, and then you went over the Ghats. Those of you who went in the old days know that. We stopped halfway there to have some refreshments, and then and I made myself sit next to Miss Krask. I mean, I never would leave her alone. I mean, I was pest of all times. And we got to Pune, and the first day we were there, the Baba sent for the women to Guru Prasad, and then he sent for the men separately, and we met with Baba. And in the afternoons, we would be in this big pandal tent, and all the Westerners sat in the front, and all the Easterners way in the back, thousands of them. And people would come by, filing by for Baba's darshan. And the first day, we were sitting there, it was very bright sun, and very, very lovely. And I had just bought a pair of shoes and sandals in the bazaar that cost like 25 cents. I was very proud of these sandals. They were so beautiful, handmade. And we're sitting there in the sun, I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden the place got black, pitch black, dark, and it started to rain. Horrendously strong rain. And the floor of the tent was mud instantly. And I looked down at my sandals to see they were being ruined, and I looked back up, and the people that had been waiting online to see Baba for his darshan must have panicked, thinking they're not going to get, you know, that he would cancel. And instantly, you've never seen anything so instantaneous in your life. The Mandali gathered around him and held hands and protected Baba from this surging crowd. And for a minute, it looked really dangerous, more than a minute. And I looked at Tex, and you know, between my sandals being ruined and Baba being attacked, and all of a sudden the crowd parted, and there was Baba beaming, this unbelievably happy beaming, and then it closed again, and I looked at Tex and said, well, you see, that's how much we understand about what's going on. So there were many, many wonderful things happening in that whole trip. One of the funny things was we always were determined to be obedient, okay? But not in important things, you know, things that were easier to do, you know, not things like being celibate or anything like that. We were determined. So one of the orders were we not to speak to this Captain Raj Gopal. Didn't say why. So Tex and I were sitting on this bus that went from where we were staying to Gur Prasad, and we were at the back, so we were letting everybody go off, and I'm at the window's open, and this man comes up to the bus like this, and he reaches his hand up to shake, and I reached out to shake his hand, and he said, "How do you do? I'm Captain Raj Gopal." I went, "Yeah!" And the poor man must have had a heart attack. I felt like he touched electricity. Then I said, "Oh no, I've been disobedient." Whatever. And then I found out, I went to Eritrea or something, and they said, "Oh no, don't worry, it was nothing." Somebody that was just going to bother the Westerners and try to say, you know, but it had no point. See, that's what I mean. We were so obedient about some things like that. See, we never saw Mayra. She was in Perta all that time. And the Mandli were not the Mandli that you all know. We couldn't talk to them, not because they were doing what they had to do. This is a very different experience. The last day, or near the last day, Baba asked everybody of the Westerners how we got there, who'd paid for the trip. And we each had to tell Baba. And my trip had been borrowed money from this wonderful friend of Miss Kress named Naomi Westerfeld. And she was well off, and she could afford to do that. So she'd lent me the money, and I said that. But Baba said, "You got to pay that money to everybody. If you borrowed money, you needed to pay it back." And I have to skip ahead. Years and years later, I suddenly became overwhelmed with the idea that I had never paid this money back. And I thought, what am I going to do? I have to get, so I called her up, and she said, "I don't want it. I don't need it." I said, "Yes, but Baba said we have to pay it back." She said, "No, you keep it." I said, "But no." And she said, no, you keep it. I don't want it. So I called Miss Krask up, and I said, "Miss Krask," and I told her. She said, "Well, that's between you and Naomi." She wouldn't tell me what to do. So I thought, and then I got an idea. I'll make out a check to the trust for that amount of money and send that. And I swear to God, the minute I said that in my mind, the phone rang, and it was Miss Krass saying, "You know, I've got an idea what to do with them, and you should send it to the trust." Which is what I did. Anyway, where was I? Went back to the last day at Gur Prasad, and Baba said we wouldn't see him again. He was planning to come again, but we wouldn't see him again. And he came through the room looking very old and very feeble and not nice, you know, not healthy looking at all. And it was really very disturbing and sad. And he went all the way up the room and turned and went out the door with men holding him. And we went out on the porch, and we said, "Oh my God, that was a sad occasion." And someone said, "Well, Baba has said that before, that we wouldn't see him again." And Miss Kress said, "No, not like that. He hasn't said it." So then is when I fell on the floor, weeping and screaming and carrying on. I had my emotional reaction that I'd been longing for all these years. Only there I was, and people were stepping over my body, and I was in the way, and it was not so wonderful after all. So I'm going to read some things to you in a minute, but I have to explain to you this thing about Donald Duck. I have some letters. Baba referred to me as Donald Duck. And I thought, well, that's cute, you know, Baba, Donald Duck. And I all the time thinking Baba doesn't really know who I am. One day, I had a dream. And I dreamt about, excuse me. I saw this program on television, which was a compilation of old Donald Duck movies put together into a story. And the story was that Donald Duck was the star of the Walt Disney Studios, and his arch rival was Mickey Mouse. And Donald Duck was very cantankerous, very difficult to get on. He was always stamping his feet in frustration and rage and anger. And people were getting annoyed and more annoyed with him, and he was really, you know, people didn't want to work with him anymore, and Daisy Duck didn't want to have him anymore as his boyfriend, and he was fired from the studios because nobody could work with him because he was so difficult to get along with, and he was always, you've seen it, he always goes into and then in the story he falls asleep and he has a dream, and in the dream he sees himself as other people see him. Oh. And he wakes up And he's changed, you see, and then he gets Daisy Duck back, and he gets back to the studio, and blah, 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 blah. And I thought, oh my God, you know, all these years Bob has been calling me Donald Duck, and I'm thinking he doesn't know who I am. And he really, really, really knows. Right. So I had the wonderful opportunity to do something for Baba, and that was, Baba liked to have books read to him. You've heard of that, haven't you? Murder Mysteries and P.G. Wodehouse. Agatha Christie and Dixon Carr. Anyway, those books were, a lot of them, out of print and hard to come by. And so I'm going to get this letter. Hang on a second. So I get a letter from Miss Krask. She used to spend the summers in the Berkshires at this dance camp, which was like a dance festival, and people went there to study with her, and she'd have a lovely time in the mountains. But on the thing script, she always wrote diagonally, and she never dated anything. Like now, it's really horrible because I don't know when. It says, "Reason for request: no bookshops for miles, and then they are empty!" Exclamation point. And it says, "Dear Donald, here is a job for your master. They would like to have for the evening readings 2 Rex Stouts before midnight and not quite dead enough. I think I have seen the latter in some paper book edition, but they may not be easy to find. Also, 3 Carter Dixons. He wouldn't kill patients. She died a lady. 9 and death makes 10. These are published by the Berkeley Medallion Mysteries and should be easy to find. If you can find either of Stout's books, please send by airmail. Just pack with open ends and send to Ron O'Galey, and since the books are not supposed to be sent by air, they seemed so hungry for Stout. Please send to same address but by sea. I will reimburse you later. How are you swimming in the hot, hot city?" Okay, so that was the thing. So well, I had the hobby of collecting books, and in New York there used to be this whole street, 4th Avenue, that was full of used bookstores and antiquarian bookstores. So I knew where to find things. And so then came a letter from Monty to Miss Krask, and it says, "Dear Margaret, your letter crossed mine by 2 hours, and whoopee what a haul it brought. Donald has certainly been on his toes. I'm rushing a list of the ones we want. Some we haven't read at all, and some we read so long ago it would be happy reading again. We have most of the Woodhouses in the list anyway. Please don't send any more PGs." That's PG Wood. "At the moment he is in the fridge. For future reading when the Woodhouse mood comes on again. The Agatha Gwynns will be most welcome. Hasn't she been made a dame yet? Baba sends his love to you and to his excuse me. Baba sends his love to you and to his Donald Duck. But Baba add, he's a fast swimmer." And then there's a whole list of the books that they wanted. And here's another letter from Monty exactly at the same time, same day. "Dear Margaret, please convey our bravo to Donald for the successful big hunting he has managed in the wilds of 4th Avenue. The poiros he has bagged will be so welcome. I have been doing a lot of head-scratching over the present short supply of the books in popular royal demand and had to shove in quite a few repeats in the book box for Pune, so your letter was really a carrier of good news. I'm sure I'll have later a further list ready for dear Donald's next safari." Blah, 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 and she goes on, much less love is always money, and then, "Dear Margaret, rushing you dear Donald Mahler's list." I went to England and I found a lot of P.G. Woodhouses, and they all had these book jackets, and on the jackets were listed all the books that they had in print, so I took that away and I sent it. "Dear Margaret, rushing you dear Donald Mahler's list of Woodhouse treasures he's brought from England. Have marked and read the ones we haven't read. Also received today 2 Agatha Christie books mailed by you. Have given Adi a list of some Edgar Wallace books he can send from there. Baba's love to Donald and to your dear self. Much love, Monty." This is in October '67. Dearest Margaret, so good to hear from you. I'm enclosing list of further books received from you. The last big batch of Woodhouse books you had sent have all been read. Laughter is his highest applause, and he got plenty of it from Meyerzad. Only 2 days before your letter arrived, Baba asked if any more Woodhouse was left for reading. Now I shall tell him of Donald's achievement you mentioned. If you can send the twins beginning November, I think they'll be here for Christmas. Such a pity if Nero and Archie have to retire. Do you know what that is? Nero Wolfe was this detective and Archie was his sidekick. Nero Wolfe was this big, heavy-set man who sat at his desk, and Archie was the one who went around to do his stuff. And it was sort of like interesting to me, kind of like Baba being the center and having his Monley do stuff. Anyway, perhaps, wait a minute, I'm going to skip a little bit here because we're going to run out of time. Okay, I'm going to not read all that. This is the best one. This is all written by Miss Crass. Quote from Mani's letter. When none may visit Mehrabad, the welcome Nero Wolfe gets from Baba would make his lovers green with envy. Not quite dead enough flew in yesterday and was not kept waiting for an hour. Baba wants you to know how happy it made him and to convey his love to dear Donald. End of quote. And Miss Cress writes, there you are, Ducky. What more do you want out of life? Then I got a postcard from Mani. And, you know, I have to say, these things didn't strike me at the time. It's only now reading about it afterwards I see how meaningful it is. But, you know, oh yeah, I sent a book, and oh yeah, he wrote, and oh yeah. It didn't mean, I mean, I can't say what I mean, but it didn't mean anything in a sense. And then I got this postcard, and I got it from Mani, and I put it away in a drawer, and I didn't think much about it. And only later on I read it. And because I was always thinking that Baba didn't know who I was, and I always think that Baba loved everybody else more. Do you know what I'm saying? I wanted some special thing, and I was getting it. I didn't know it. Even if you look at the movies, you see Baba putting his hands on me when we're carrying him. And I'm happy. It's not like I wasn't happy, but for some reason, you know, your mind, or my mind. Dear Donald, the 2 Rex Stout books airmailed by you are joyously received. Baba wants me to send you this special word of his love to let you know it made him happy. Lovingly, Mani. Then the story about the check I told you, sent to the trust in lieu of payment to Naomi for the trip, from Mani. Hi dear Donald, J. Baba. The Baba story that came with your check to the trust is so delightfully heartwarming. Only a story in his love could have such a perfect ending. As I read your letter, my thoughts were, isn't it just like Naomi, just like Donald, just like Margaret, just like Baba? You know, because in my ignorance, I sent this money to a bank in Ahmedabad, which has nothing to do with it at all. It got there eventually. And you know, Mani would always, I don't know if you can see it, she'd put these little ducks at the bottom of her letters, little scrawled ducks. So there you are. How are we doing with time? Where is my time keep? What?
Fine. We're good.
What does that mean, good? I know you're good.
I can't just say, I can't see the reflection on that.
It's 1:12.
We have another 20 minutes for you, Donald.
Ooh. Okay. Wait a minute. Now I'm in a mess. Hold on a second. You know, when Baba was in the body, when he was alive, he was somebody that was in India, and we were in New York, and he was somebody that we would see probably again. He wasn't there with us. He was in India. I'm talking about the way we thought about it, or at least I kind of took him for granted, and I loved him, and I did, but it was not really part of me, I thought. And Baba would send us orders from time to time, some kinds of very strange orders, and I did them. But I look back now and I said, gee, I'd love to do that all over again because I could do it much better now. And I'm gonna read some of it to you, some of the things that came over the year. This was in a little tiny pamphlet Baba's reminder to those who love him and obey him and to those who would do so. How are you, Donald? This is from Miss Crest. How are you, Donald? This may not be too easy for you, but I am sure you will not fail B. Write your news, love, Margaret Krask. And in it, for 6 months up to March 1958, be ready and determined to do whatever I ask you to do. Do no lustful action whatever. Even husband and wife had better remain celibate. Be honest. Honesty demands that you deceive no one, give no false hope or empty promise. Try your very best not to hurt the feelings of others, but not to the extent of doing any lustful action. That's interesting. You see what I mean? Does that make sense to you? And in conclusion, those who have not surrendered to me, who cannot do so, but would nevertheless like to obey me, should consider the last 3 injunctions as my orders to them. In conclusion, Baba exhorted all those present to take the decisive step of resolving here and now that they would try 100% to obey him for these 6 months, and that while embracing him silently, they would concentrate on that resolve and remaining faithful to it. That was up before we saw him in 58, and that was 6 months. And after that, when we were at the center, I think we already breathed a sigh of relief that it was over. He said, well, you better do another 3 months. This is referring to July 10th, because not every year did we have a silence on July 10th. And sometimes we had silences on other days, and sometimes we had a fast, and sometimes we had both, and sometimes Baba didn't send any instructions at all. And this is June 1958. On 10th of July 1958, none of his lovers should fast or observe silence as done in previous years. On that day, instead, Baba wants all his lovers to do the following. Exactly at 12 midnight, your local time, of 9th July 1958, i.e. during the 0 hour of 10th July, immediately after 9th July is over, repeat 7 times audibly in your mother tongue or in English, whichever is convenient to do to you. Beloved God, thy will has come to pass. So there was this very special thing for that. Dear Donald, this is from Baba. Dear Donald, the following are orders I mentioned I would send between June 10th and July 10th. For 40 days, beginning from July 14th, 1958, repeat audibly but softly 500 times a day at one sitting, any one time during the 24 hours. Beloved God, thy will has come to pass, and that all our Baba has declared will soon come to pass this year. 2, give up one cherished item, i.e. some special food or drink or smoking, etc. I might send you one special instruction in October. You should not let the possibility of this interfere with your livelihood. You should not cable or correspond with me or Erich until informed otherwise. Love, Baba. And that 500 times a day was really doesn't sound so much, but it really was. It was really hard. And how to keep track of 500 times. And I started out by having a graph paper and putting a pencil in each little space, which was horrible because your pencil would slip. And did I say that? And finally, we just got this idea to get these poppet beads. You know what they are? They're like fake pearls that stick into each other. And we made a kind of rosary out of them, 50 strung together and said 10 times around. And then even that was, you know, like, yeah, why didn't I do that better? I mean, sometimes, oh my God, it's almost midnight and I didn't do it. Or I'm at the beach and here's everybody around. I'd go and hide behind a bush and say this, you know, and people would, you know, it sounds stupid, doesn't it? But it wasn't as easy as you think. It might be. This is August 1958. Inform each concerned in USA of my instructions as follow. Circumstances during these 3 months will put to test love and faith of my lovers, so try best to keep firm hold on my Dhamman. Do not talk ill of others and try not to think ill of others. Remember, no correspondence with me or Erich. Now a letter from Mani, and says, Dear Margaret, it's just lovely to have an excuse drop in me lap so I'm able to say hello to you. Of the 215 odd who received the instructions for July, about 30 are being sent a special instruction for him for October. And of this number, to help me, 14 are his dare dancers. Don't know where some of them might be now, so sending their letters enclosed with yours, as you'd know best where to forward them. They are Maria Dare, Jean Sabron, Catherine Damon, Elise Donaldson, Joe Fabian, Viola Farber, Lauren Hightower, Bunty Kelly, Cynthia Mays, Donald Mahler, Zebra Nevin, Peter Saul, and Naomi Westover. All of us had been with Baba in 58 at the center. Baba wants you to acknowledge by cable to Adi receipt of the enclosed 14 letters, and to see that each gets the letter in time to observe his or her order from 1st October. Can't have a nice tasty chat with you, as I'd love to, Maggie dearie, but you're often here in our chats and jokes and thoughts. With ever so much love from your old Mehrazad companions, what misses you still, Mani? And then on the bottom, Miss Kress writes, letter from Mani to me. How fortunate the dancers are to be chosen to do this. Much love, Margaret Krask. Then here, this 12th September 1958. Dear Donald, this is the special instruction that I said I might send you in October. Select any one of the following 3 orders that you find compatible with your work, and observe that one order on each of the following 5 days of October, the 1st, 7th, 14th, 21st, and 28th. Repeat for 1 hour from 12 p.m. to 1 a.m. the following. Beloved God, that thou art the soul of all souls. Or observe complete silence for 24 hours, or observe fast for 24 hours. I'm not going to say, well, I mean, I think I did the silence one.
John, when you gave something up, do you recall what you gave up when he told you to give up one thing that you were fond of? Or?
I gave up giving up things. No. I don't know. I do know that Viola, for instance, who was a heavy smoker, gave up smoking, and the minute she gave up smoking, she knew she'd done a bad thing. She regretted, and she told me that she was sitting there with a cigarette in her hand as the clock ticked to the end of that last minutes before we were, and the minute the clock struck 12, she went, You know, what I'm trying to say, if I have to make clear, is that we had these orders, but it didn't make us spiritual. It really didn't. Well, maybe, I don't know. We just did it. And I don't think I always wanted to do it. I mean, who wants to sit and recite something 500 times a day when you're a youngster and you're out, carousing? So then Baba, there's another one now here. From 1958 October, I declare that a unique and unprecedented occurrence will soon take place in the spiritual realm. But apart from this, and irrespective of whatever may or may not happen after November end, I want you to put full trust in me and try your best to hold on to me and obey me till the very end. Are you prepared to do so? Reply direct to me in short and to the point only. Apart from this one short reply, you must not correspond with me or Erich until otherwise informed. Baba wishes your reply not to be more than 4 lines and to be sent within a week after you receive the circular. So that was, we had to write to him. This is from 1959. Baba desires to give no instructions for the observance of this 10th of July, the 34th anniversary of his silence, and leaves it entirely to the inclination of each concerned, i.e. it may be observed if and as we like, or not observed at all. And this is apropos of doing things on your own as opposed to doing things that come as an order from a master. Doing something on one's own is never the same as doing that same thing because the master tells you to. Baba once explained this in an anecdote, but that's coming from Baba. Hang on, I'm going to get there. Okay. Then, I'm sorry. What I did, there's this one here. We had to do this either repeat the name of God 500 times. Wait a minute. I better read the whole thing. I'm going to get it wrong. Baba wishes all who love him to know that they should repeat any one name of God 500 times daily for 21 days, from the 26th of December 1960 through the 15th of January 1961. This repetition should be of any one name only, the name most close to their heart. 2. Under any circumstances, they must fast for 24 hours during these 21 days. 3. To the men, Baba gives the option of fasting for any number of days at one stretch during the 21 days. The women are given the option of fasting at the most for 5 days only. i.e. they must not fast for more than 5 days during the period of 21 days. Then there's a little more to that, but it says there was a place on the bottom where we had to cut off the bottom of it and write what we had done, how many days we had fasted, and send it to Baba by mail, like kind of report card. So anyway, I mean, there's a lot more stuff, but I just don't know how to explain that. We had all this connection with Baba. When I read it now, I'm astounded that I didn't. Yes. Does that mean you're under arrest? He's standing there like.
Don't shoot.
How more meaningful it is to me now reading about it. And maybe that was wise. Maybe Baba didn't want us to think about it, that we were doing something special, you know, or we were being very highly spiritual, or we were being special, because we were just doing that. And what happened was that when Baba, one morning, Peter called me on the phone and said, "Can I come up and see you?" And I said, "Well, sure." Came up to my apartment and he said, "You know, we just heard that Baba died, passed away." Wait a minute. And this came as a really big shock, because like often happens when somebody passes away, you think of all the things that you should have done or didn't do, or you know, it was like all of a sudden the bottom dropped out of the world, and he wasn't going to be there. And we'd always thought, well, we'll see him again. Well, you know, he's there. We had orders from him, or we could write a letter. But no, gone, really gone. So I thought. And I marched myself up to the Indian consulate in a snowstorm to see if I could find anything in the newspapers about this. And I did find something, and it said, I can't remember the exact word, Indian spiritual man or Indian guru passes away in cave. Mayor Baba. It was Eric showed me the newspaper article later on, and it's true, they didn't know who he was or what was going on. But what happened was that I felt very almost destroyed in a way, and I went along not knowing what to do. And one year, somehow or other, I was at some place where I met some Baba people, and they asked me about my experiences, and I spoke a little bit, and you know, that was the first time that I had ever spoken to anybody other than our little circle of friends about Baba. And as it turned out, that every year when I was in the Metropolitan Opera, we would tour for 5 weeks, and we'd go a week to Cleveland, a week to Boston, a week to Atlanta, and so somebody said, well, you know, maybe I should look up some of these Baba groups in these cities. So we got to Boston, and I determined that I would call, but I still couldn't make my call. And the last day we were there, I called up, was Jan Pascal. Jan and Pascal were married then. And I said to her, she said, "Oh, it's too bad you didn't call earlier, because Mayorji had been here and I missed him." But I went over to see her, and then she said, "Well, you know, if you're going to be in Atlanta, why don't you go down to the center if you can get some time off?" And I thought, well, why would anybody want to go there? We were there with Bob, and he's not there now anymore. What's the point of it? And we got to Atlanta, and I realized I had a weekend off, and I could fly down there. So I called to Jane Haynes and told her I'd like to come, and she said, "Please do." She came to the airport and picked me up, drove me to the center, and opened Baba's house for me, you know, by myself, and was treated really wonderfully well. And I felt such a presence of Baba, and I felt the presence of Baba more in meeting Baba lovers and going to these meetings and talking about Baba than I ever had before. And I think that's what Baba wants us to do, for me anyway, to open oneself to other people and not think about yourself always. But I'll tell you a story before I finish about going to Atlanta, and this just shows you. You know, has anybody ever read the picture of Dorian Gray? Mm-hmm. In the beginning of it, there's a quotation from the Rubaiyat of Al-Makayim. And then it says, if I can quote it right, it says, "I sent my soul through the infinite some message of the afterlife to tell, and by it returned to me and said, I myself am heaven and hell." Okay, so here, the night, excuse me, the night before I'm going to go to Myrtle Beach for the first time, we're doing this opera called La Pericole, Offenbach music. And in the end of the first act, the men had to carry the leading baritone in a sedan chair, you know. And the women would carry, other men carried, the women carried the soprano. But there I'm standing in this thing in the front of the stage in the footlights, and on the front in my place, and I'm carrying this thing, and in the scenery there's fireworks going off and all this wonderful stuff, and they're singing, Spaniard knows, Spaniard knows, Spaniard knows the ways of love. And I went, oh my God, isn't this, you know, brought me right. So, okay, went back downstairs, the end of this act is over, and we had to change for the second act, and in the second act there was a ballet. And at one point in the ballet, all the men were on opposite sides of the stage, and you had to cross through to the other side, through the men. And opposite me was this young man who I didn't like and who didn't like me. And as I was crossing through, he didn't quite leave enough room, and I smashed him, bumped into him, almost knocked him over. And then afterwards, I said, oh my God, you know, there was it. 5 minutes ago I was a Spaniard knowing the ways of love, and now I'm knocking this guy down to the floor. And I can't go to Myrtle Beach and leave this like that. So I said, I've just got to find him and apologize. So I hunted all over the theater hoping I'd find him in some dark corner by himself, you know? Yeah. No, he was in the dressing room and all the other dancers were there, and I had to do it in front of everybody. And I said to him, you know, I'm really sorry, can you ever forgive me? And I said, yes. He said, yes, but I can't forget it. And that's how I went to Myrtle Beach. And so that's my story. I mean, there's more to it, but that's enough, I think, for today. Okay. We have a few more minutes if somebody wants to ask some question. I mean, as long as it's not spiritual advice. Does anybody want to say anything? Who said that?
I did.
Hi.
How do the other people, hi.
I see you.
How do the other people in your life take your coming to make her Baba?
You mean the non-Baba lover?
Your Jewish family who wanted you to get bar mitzvah.
Well, wait, no, wait, don't get that right. They did not want to get me bar mitzvah. I wanted to get bar mitzvah. They could have cared less. You know, but yes, I understand your question. The thing is that in those early days, people didn't know about Baba. We were told not to even use his name in public. And you couldn't put his picture up where people could see it. It was kind of a secret, you know, not because people just wouldn't understand it. And people thought Baba was funny looking. That mustache, you know, he looked like Jerry Colonna or something. So it aroused a kind of antipathy in a funny kind of way. So we were told to soft pedal it. So we were really amongst ourselves, you see? Yeah.
What was it that led you to accept the idea that Baba is who he says he is?
I just did.
It just happened, huh?
Well, I mean, it didn't happen up there. I knew it. Like I said, I believed in all that, in Jesus and everything. I knew the avatar was coming. I didn't know what the avatar was, but the minute I heard about it, and let me tell you that seeing him, you could have no doubt. Why I say that, I can't say. Baba was so much an otherworldly creature in a funny kind of way, and he was so much the center of everything, and his attention was all over the place. He was not like you and I. That doesn't mean that one would have to accept him as God, but I did. I've never ever doubted it. What I doubted was myself, but not him. Anything else?
Don,
Yes?
now that you're here with all this experience and seeing Baba, how is Baba for you now? What is Baba for you now? Is he there every moment of your day? Do you go times when you don't think of him? How does he direct you?
I think that he's there, but unspoken and unseen. I mean, he's always there, and sometimes it's more than others, meaning that he doesn't come forth in a vision or anything, but what happens to you or in life or what's going on in the world, I relate to Baba very much, but he's always there. It's like underneath everything. I mean, I don't have any visions or anything like that, but I know he's there, and I know, you know what, I'll be perfectly honest with you, I'm not accepting of it all because I don't I don't have 100% obedience. Even though I believe it, it's not so easy to drop the world and come to Baba. I believe him and in him, but I don't accept it in my daily life enough as I should. But you see what happens is life goes on little by little by little. Those things get broken down and worn away, and each in our own individual ways. You can't just all of a sudden drop everything and say, oh, okay, Baba's God and now I'm going to be spiritual. It doesn't, I don't know, I don't think it works like that. It just doesn't for me, and it works for everybody in a very different way, and that's why Baba's the master, and that's why we cannot tell anybody else what to do or what to think. And nobody can, you know? I mean, I don't remember any of the Mandali, like Eritrea Mani, ever trying to tell us what to do. I mean, Adi could be a little fierce sometimes about the West. But other than that, no. And I think that everybody is different, and one has to just live one's life and leave other people alone in a way. I don't mean to leave them alone, but you know, you can't make formula. If you do this, this will, that will happen. And then rules don't exist. For Baba came to break away all rules. Am I saying too much?
No, that's great.
Thank you.
Now listen, I'm saying that doesn't mean that you said that Donald Mahler said that there are no rules. Don't do that, please. I'm saying that what I think, it's not, you know, I'm not making a rule that there are no rules. I can't do that. Anybody else have anything to say? Donations will be accepted at the door.
Thank you.
No, thank you all.